Well, my name is Almut Schön, and I am the director of our language center at Technical University Berlin. And today I will talk about our experiences with teaching and even testing academic language use in German as a foreign language. Yeah, this is my agenda. I will talk quite shortly about our project, about our German learning offers, and then go into what is meant with academic language proficiency, which definitions are given by science and by research. And as I said before, I will not talk like all the time, but this is our idea was to get a real workshop, so you will have the chance to discuss with us later on. And then I will talk about the academic presentations students gave in our German courses and the specific challenges and problems they had. And we are not so many participants. You are always free to interrupt me or to ask any questions or come in with any comments. That's always possible. And my colleague Frau Leier is also here to supervise the chat. So you can also post things there if you feel for it. So that's about our project. As I said, 3 universities joined together in this Erasmus Plus project in 2020. And yeah, we are all technical universities, and we are all universities facing the challenge that completely new students wanted to study at our universities, students with refugee background. And we tried to have a closer look on their situation and their very often hard study situation. The project was funded by the European Commission. And as you see from the dates, it was quite hard to get the project running because 2020, we had not only a migration situation, but also a pandemic. And for all of us, it was quite hard to sustain our usual teaching offer. So it took us a while to get to each other. And I'm very happy that now we managed to meet in person as well. Yeah, that's the project in a very short, just only on one slide. I won't go further into the details. But you see, we have different intellectual outputs, IOs, we call them. And one intellectual output is, of course, foreign languages. And TU Berlin is responsible for this intellectual output. But we also try to look on the onboarding situation for refugee students. How do you become a student at German university or at Swedish or Spanish university if you are a refugee? We tried to look on the training and support situation for staff, because also staff is confronted with completely new questions and situations from students. And our Swedish partner has started a very successful job matching initiative, and we tried to have a look on this as well. But this is maybe not so important for you. I start with statistics. Everybody who is knows the situation in Germany knows this statistics very well. It shows simply that in 2016 we had unbelievable more than 700,000 asylum requests in Germany, and we had this really huge amount of refugees, mainly from Syria, but also from Iran and Iraq. Coming to Germany. And yeah, of course, there were also those who already had studied in their home countries, who had begun to study, who wanted to continue their studies, and who tried to connect to academic life and academic education in Germany as well. So this is the situation for Germany, and it was kind of dramatic, 2015, 2016 especially. Then the numbers sank, maybe also because of the pandemic and all the travel constraints. But now, with the sad fact of the war in Europe, we have again rising numbers of asylum requests. not only from Ukraine, but from many other countries. And I think the situation that Germany is an aim for refugees will not come to an end in the near future. And also at universities, we have to discuss at least questions like how to integrate these new students into our education. Refugees and higher education in Germany. We had the Integra program financed by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. And in total, more than 100 million euro have been handed out to a lot of universities, to more than 100 universities in Germany. And all over Germany, we had a lot of programs, specifically language training programs for refugees, with a lot of preparatory courses at these preparatory colleges, but sometimes also at universities. A lot of colleagues in this meeting have experiences in this field. So I know a lot of your names and have read about your work. We had a lot of German and English courses for international students and students with refugee background. We also were able to offer career services. Yeah, and as I say before, at 130 universities, so that was really a huge program with really remarkable financial support to a lot of activities. In Germany, there were a lively discussion about the chances for refugees and also for our institutions. And these are the advantages discussed also in research by Berg et al. For example, that more international students, more students with different backgrounds could contribute to social integration, or they could be integrated into our academic system. We would get motivated students with high aspirations and students who really want to study hard and yeah, to contribute. We would automatically pluralize and internationalize our student body by accepting more refugee students. And of course, integration of refugees was seen as an opportunity for refugees for their future careers in Germany, or even as an opportunity for those who, after a while, would return to their home countries, as it happened in the 90s when we had a lot of refugees from former Yugoslavia, who after some years, in fact, a lot of them returned to the new Balkan countries. So these were the advantages research has pointed out, and the hopes. There is a lot of research about the situation of refugee students from traditional immigrant countries like Canada, for example, who has an immigration policy since many, many decades, but also from US, Australia, and UK. There are some overviews for those who want to get into the details deeper. And this research, though in an English-speaking environment, also focuses on the problems of this, yeah, in a way, completely new students approaching to universities in English-speaking countries. So this research pointed out that language proficiency, in this case in English, is extremely important and extremely decisive for study success. The recognition of credentials and former academic experiences is often a big problem. Yeah, not all university experiences are accredited by the new country. Not all, even bachelor degrees or modules or any other experiences are accepted by the new country. So that's a main challenge for the new students. The information about higher education systems is often not very much comprehensible. I mean, even for us Germans living in Germany, it's sometimes hard to understand all the bureaucratic details a student applicant must fulfill. How much harder is it for a person who has a refugee background? So comprehensible information is one of the big challenges, and refugee students need well-suited support and counseling much more than students with the German A-level coming from, I don't know, Duisburg to Berlin to study. So these are the main challenges international research saw. And as I said before, there's very, very little research about the German situation, because in Germany we have the situation quite recently, only since some years. So this is mainly about English-speaking higher education systems, but I think that the results are very much comparable to our results. Yes, and we try to focus with our project on these challenges. So we try to discuss, and that's also what I'm going to do today, language proficiency as one of the core challenges, but also the whole process of getting a student, becoming a student, recognition of former academic experience was one of our IOs, intellectual outputs, and support and counseling was in the center of intellectual output 5 in our little project. Yeah, as I said before, in Germany, we have very little research about the situation of refugee students, as it is a new situation. But we have some research from our colleagues from Bremen, from University of Bremen. Claudia Harsch and Annika Müller-Karabil have published 2 small papers where they have followed refugee students who first took intensive German language courses and then became university students in different subjects. And Shaman and Jönsö have published also a small research. Lambrechts is a British researcher, and she calls the refugee students the super disadvantaged students with a very hard living situation. Very often the immigration status is unresolved, and it takes not only weeks, but months, and sometimes even years before people become an acknowledged status as asylum seekers, for example. This financial situation is extremely hard. There are no families in the background supporting them, and all our students had to work like in low-paid jobs anywhere to get to afford a living at all. Some of our students have had trauma experiences. The whole family situation is insecure, and they are of course very concerned about their relatives back in Syria or now in Ukraine. And yeah, in a way we have students who live under very, very hard conditions and nevertheless try to adapt to a new academic culture. We see this also in the numbers from Bremen. Only 33 out of 80 really took up studies after successful passing an intensive preparatory program in German. At TU Berlin, we had more than 600 participants in our intensive German courses at the preparatory college, where, for example, my colleague Frau Leier also works and worked. And out of these more than 600 participants, only 342, which is, yeah, maybe just 50%, passed the final exam on level C1 in German. My colleague, Dr. Leier, also has done a needs analysis, and I think some of you also were involved in this research, but she will talk later about the results, like next week in our next workshop. And it's interesting that the colleagues from Bremen described the situation of the students who passed these intensive German language courses and entered studies with an initial shock students experience in semester 1, because they only now realize that academic German on a very high level is absolutely essential for getting around. And that was a feeling all students had from these preparatory courses, that the language course just was joke and a game, but the reality in a German-speaking university is quite hard to cover with. And yeah, these students reported that the constant feeling of insufficient language proficiency and a high time pressure, because they had a lot of study expectations to meet, and yeah, that was their feeling. They had to cope with new academic and a completely new language, which was really a challenge for many of them. So on the one hand, we have this, yeah, we have had, we've seen also advantages, but on the other hand, we see a lot of real problems in our teaching, and I'm sure you have faced these problems as well if you have taught refugee students. And the question for us was in our teaching and also in this project, how can we improve language teaching and how can we secure or try to secure study success before and during studies? And I think that the key is that we need to understand the concept of academic language proficiency, because this is what students keep telling us once they ended studies, that this academic language is problematic. So I think it's worth to have a closer look at what is this and how can this be described and how can this academic language proficiency be taught. At Technical University Berlin, we had 3 different language learning offers for refugee students. We have the preparatory college. Here is a picture from our first group from Syria mainly. Really, there were only, I think, only Syrian male students approaching to Berlin in November 2015. And we have had up to 9 months preparation courses, intensive preparation courses, and mainly in German as an L2. At the same time, the Modern Language Center, which is abbreviated with CEMS, offered courses in German. We offer in total more than 30 courses per semester for both exchange students, like usual Erasmus students from European countries, overseas students, but also full-time students who study English-speaking programs at TU Berlin, and also refugee students were integrated into our programs. And not to forget, we had a lot of student initiatives, especially in 2016. I think everybody remembers the welcome culture back then. That a lot of new initiatives came also from students who offered counseling, who offered buddy programs, who tried to help the new refugee students as best as they could, who collected money, but also, I don't know, classes or books or whatever, computers, things a new student would need, and who also organized language learning offers, at least at TU Berlin. I'm sure in many universities, same thing happened. So these were the 3 offers we had. And today I'm talking about the experiences from our intensive German language course, because we had the biggest chance to see the problems refugee students would face. Well, as I said before, academic language proficiency seems to be the core challenge for newcomers to Germany. And what are we talking about? You all are common with the definition by Jim Cummins, which is quite old, from 1979, when he described that there were 2 different kind of language proficiency in persons, something he described as basic interpersonal communicative skills and abbreviated with BICS. That's something he said every 6-year-old has in his or her first language. So 6-year-old child in the UK has this interpersonal communicative skills and can master like every daily situation in English in the same way a 6-year-old Chinese kid can master these daily situations in Chinese. These kids cannot master academic situations. They do not have a cognitive academic language proficiency, Cummins abbreviated with CALP, but we can also talk just about academic language proficiency. And well, it's quite interesting to know about the background of this research, because this research, Jim Cummins is a Canadian researcher, and he researched about Canadian immigrants, young children who came to Canada and who became fluent in English very, very fast. After just 2 years, they were exactly as fluent as their mates, but it took them more than 5 years in as a medium to master academic texts and talks. So he considered that academic language proficiency is something extra and something extra hard and something which simply takes time. And maybe that's also the reason for our problems, because we at TU Berlin, and I'm sure at your universities as well, we try to teach German in a very short time. As I told you before, 9 months from 0 to C1 is a very, very short time. And maybe it's quite like normal and known since the 80s that it's more or less impossible to gain academic language proficiency in such a short period of time. And it's interesting to, just to know that in this early research, it took 5 years for these young students in Canada. Cummins then explained that these interpersonal communicative skills to master all daily situations, to understand, in his case, English at the doctors and in the family, everywhere, that happened regardless of IQ or academic aptitude or whatever. Everybody, almost every student mastered this first step of English language proficiency, but to master academic language proficiency, it took much, much longer. Yeah, now I think we are here with so many people from different universities that could be nice to start our first group work. As I said before, we are convinced, I'm convinced that academic language proficiency is something really relevant for study success and for mastering academic studies in any language, but in our case in German. And well, I would really love to invite you to a first group discussion in smaller groups. We can just maybe exchange your experiences from teaching, and maybe you get not more than, let's say, 5 minutes or something. Maybe you can come to a short definition for you and from your teaching background. What is defined? What would you define as academic language proficiency, and see different from like usual daily interpersonal communicative skills? So we would really love to invite you to join your experience in smaller groups. And I think my colleague, Dr. Leier, please, can you open up? We are 19.
Yes, I just want to say that we will not record this, of course, so I will stop the recording.
I think that if we talk more about the linguistic level, then Cummins' definition that academic language is decontextualized is always an abstract language about more or less abstract things. That's true, even if this definition is already from 2000. And what you said about that students need to understand that there are certain registers, certain kind of text sorts specific for academia, like presentations, papers, abstracts. And these text sorts are all culturally bound and defined, and they look different even from one European country to the other. We have specific text sorts only visible in German universities, and we have certainly specific text sorts in French universities, Spanish, and so on. So that's definitely important to understand for learners. Academic language is mostly written language, or even if it's spoken, then it's conceptually written language, as Schleppegrell wrote in 2004. And it's explicit, well, because we're not talking about daily things and then he said blah, blah, blah. But we need to be explicit, to be decontextualized. It's complex and it raises high cognitive demands to speakers, writers, students, professors. And then I typed down this quotation from Schleppegrell. Students are typically expected to project a non-interacting and distanced relationship. That's very important as well. We want students to understand that texts and researchers and professors have a proposition maybe completely different from my own personal position. And we want them to understand that there is a distance we have towards research, which we see as a important quality of research, to be neutral in a way and to be open for many different positions. It's an abstract, depersonalized way of thinking, which is, yeah, hard to understand and even harder to master in a new language, to learn this depersonalized way of giving an academic presentation, for example, because it's not about my personal lifestyle or opinion, but about referring about research results from others, and then to express my personal opinion as well. Well, in German, Feilke wrote about this academic language and called it Bildungssprache, educated language. And it's he defined there are certain linguistic acts, language acts, like describing, comparing, explaining, analyzing, and of course important grammatical means in German and English as well, and in many other languages, is to learn the passive voice because of this abstractness and decontextualization. So passive voice is an enormously important part of our teaching activities, and to understand compound and the whole verb system is important as well. Well, here I plan to have a second group work. How should this academic language be taught? Because I'm sure that you have a lot of valuable important experiences, because a lot of you have been teaching academic language, but our time is limited. So I just decided, and I hope you are not too annoyed, that we just hop over this second group work, because there is another chance for group work later on, and this is more maybe more empirically founded. So how then I should reformulate the question: how did we teach academic oral presentation skills? Today I will talk only about one important text sort, presentations. Next week my colleague Dr. Leier will talk about written language. I mean, not only conceptually written, but really written language. We, of course, tried to teach the genres, the registers of presentations, because we think that these genres are important to understand. How a presentation looks like and should look like is important to understand. As Frau Kiermeier mentioned, it's very important to not only to know the words, but the chunks So we teach a lot of these important chunks for opening, closing a presentation, for holding the floor, for how to ask questions, and so on. All this Redemittel, as we call them in German. We of course teach by doing. So we invite students to give presentations already on a very early stage, already on A2. They are asked to give presentations maybe on very easy or daily topics as my hobby, dogs, or whatever. And then these topics get more and more complex and up to C1. We have a standardized input and of course a standardized preparation time when we assess presentations, and we try to follow the criteria for evaluation. For example, the Goethe Institute has published, did they fulfill the task? How about coherence and fluency? It's very important to become a fluent speaker, otherwise nobody will be able to listen to you. Is the mode of expression adequate? Is the presentation more or less accurate in terms of grammatical correctness? And yeah, pronunciation, intonation, of course, plays an important role when it comes to oral language skills, and it is an important foundation we should teach. That is what we did. I'm sure you did maybe some things in the same way. Maybe you did teach these academic oral presentation skills also in a completely different way. But yeah, this is how we taught or tried to teach students that this is an important text sort they will be confronted with in all kinds of studies in the future, and they have to learn how to hold a presentation. So after we taught this, we had a lot of assessments where presentations were assessed as part of their progress during like B1 and B2 and C1 classes. And we had the unique chance to record some of these presentations. Some students agreed that they could be recorded. And of course, I tried to anonymize all names and personal details. And we had the chance to analyze this presentations, because I think it's a really very important text sort in academic life. Well, we wanted students to understand that every presentation should be logical and coherent on an adequate level, and every presentation should contain all the elements I've summarized here. Like, it's a standardized text sort. You have to have welcoming and a title and structure and things like this. So this was part of the teaching in the B1 and B2 and C1 courses. I'm sure it's a very common part of teaching academic language courses. And well, now let's take this in English to make it more comprehensible to the whole group here. This was a typical input we gave to students on B2 level. Short text about ebooks and the popularity of ebooks. And then we asked students to present this topic and the content of this very small, very short text. They should summarize the statement, and they should say what are the advantages of the ebook compared to the printed book. And last but not least, very important in the text sort of German presentation, what is your opinion about it? Can the ebook also be used in studies? What would libraries look then? So that's this thinking structure, or the structure of academic presentations. You should give a summary of someone else's research or results, and then also express your own opinion. That's what we try to teach constantly. So, and now I have brought for you 3 presentations from people I called differently than their really I mean, the real names were different. So we have Salar, a young man from Iran, and we have Damaris from Syria, and Rami also from Syria. And they did this task. They prepared a short presentation on this topic, ebooks, yes or not. And well, I don't know whether all of you are registered in our Moodle, because there you can find the transcripts and even the recordings of these 3 young refugee students learning German and giving a small presentation. And this would be my, our second invitation to discuss in the same groups or to have a look at these 3 presentations. The audios are, of course, in German, but the transcripts are both in German and English. I tried to make the same errors in a way than students made in German. And you should try to have a look at this and to answer these questions. What do these 3 young people master? What is good? But what is still missing in their trials, and what are their problems to master academic language in this very specific presentation as an example? It's just an example from our teaching. So yeah, as I said, you can find everything in our Moodle course. I can show you how it looks like. Here's my presentation, and here are the transcripts. You should have a look onto in your groups. If you want, you can listen to the recordings, but they are in German. And you should take, we invite you, we were very happy if you could take maximum 10 minutes to discuss what is good and what is still a problem for these 3 young students. Do you have access to these files? No. Frau Lai, what can we do about this? Can we just send the documents into the transcript into every breakout room?
I can send it now, just now. I will just stop now the records. Short time to deal with the 3 presentations on the same subject, and though the young woman used a lot of hesitation markers, was very constant sound in her presentation, she mastered, at least in the view of our teachers, best the she fulfilled the task in the best way, because she was able to talk what the text says and to talk about her personal experiences when she looked for books in Arabic and found them as ebooks and used them. And we found that I was not teaching that course, I was only the researcher in this group, but the teachers found that impressive, whereas Rami, for example, was not able to summarize this little input in the view of the teachers back then. So for us, task fulfillment was a very important part of this oral presentation as a text sort. Could students summarize the text proposition, the ideas of a text, be it as short as the one I showed you? And afterwards, I've often been thinking that for students who are refugees, who undertook such a sometimes for sure dramatic journey to, let's say, Berlin from Syria and the war circumstances, and who really went through all these life-changing experiences, I mean, how strange must it be for them to talk about something like ebooks
isn't that a very strange task in an intellectual way, because they have gone through so much more dramatic situations. Other themes we asked them to talk about were something like ecological food, because that's quite a big issue in Germany. Is it relevant at all for somebody who does not know how to survive from 1 month to the next? I mean, financially, because their financial situation is much harder than we can imagine. Or another theme was broadcast fees. So this is something I reflected about, and nevertheless, I think these tasks, these are typical tasks from German learning materials, German books, and they're typical because for us, they are relevant. And students do not only need to learn the new language, but they also need to understand the new topics relevant to a new society. And they need to understand in a way that even if they until now thought that ecological food is something completely irrelevant to their lives, they need to understand that it is an important topic in modern German society. So it's not only about learning words and tongues and grammar, but also about understanding a new society in a way, because these topics reflect our way of thinking, and to learn a new way of taking things seriously or not. And even if this sounds very hard, but I think it's like both sides have to learn from each other. We maybe as teachers also need to understand that some of our approaches are quite inadequate for students who just came from war, for example. And nevertheless, we need to teach them other things relevant for their future studies. Yeah, as you said, chunks are extremely important to master all these text sorts. I'm sure that we will, if you will continue this series, we will meet some other chunks for written German next week with Mareike Leier. And it's a long way to learn to use chunks, from chunks to meaningful and a grammatically correct usage of language. It is really, really a long way, as we can see from these examples. And I think maybe especially in German, the verb is the center, and we cannot stress enough the usage of the verb tenses, all our morphological structures. We need to talk about verb constructions, active passive voice, I already mentioned. So for me, reading through this transcript, it became very clear that we need to exercise a lot about around the whole, the verb and its many possibilities to structure a sentence. So that was my summary. Maybe here it is once again in a shorter form. I think, as before, that giving presentations or this speech act of academic oral presentation is very relevant for study success. I think that openings and closings are extremely relevant, and all these chunks we try to teach out. It is very important to structure the speech in a coherent way. The verb is in the center of maybe German language, I don't know, but at least in this text sort. And to be able to make the difference between a text proposition and my personal opinion is one of the most important aims of our teaching, I think, of our teaching academic language usage. So I tried to speak as fast as possible to come to this point. Here are my sources. And if you're interested, I would very much recommend the publications from our colleagues from Bremen, as they had the chance to follow refugee students throughout a longer way, and they report on this very recent developments, which is kind of, yeah, I found this very interesting. Yeah, in all presentations, we try to teach students that they should say, thank you much for your attention in the end, which is vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. So I had to write this on my last slide. Yeah, this is the link to our Moodle course will be sent out now by my colleague to all of you. I'm really thankful that you took the time and to joined us. So if there are any last comments or questions, we would be very happy to answer them. And yeah, feel free to ask me or my colleague anything you want to. If there is something you want to add, something we overlooked, something we forgot to say.